Long before selfies, Instagram, or people checking their reflection on a phone screen, ancient storytellers were already fascinated by a strange human weakness: the obsession with ourselves. Thousands of years ago, Greek mythology told the story of a young man named Narcissus. He was beautiful, and he knew it. People admired him. Some even loved him. But Narcissus rejected them all. Then one day, something happened that would change his life forever. He came across a still pool of water and looked down. There, staring back at him, was the most beautiful person he had ever seen. He couldn't look away. He didn't know he was looking at himself. The longer he stared, the more fascinated he became. Eventually, Narcissus became so consumed by his own reflection that he stayed beside the water until he wasted away. It's a strange and tragic story. But thousands of years later, his name would become attached to one of psychology's most talked about ideas: narcissism. And here's where the story gets interesting. Narcissism isn't simply about taking too many selfies, talking about yourself constantly, or enjoying attention. Psychologically, it's much deeper. At its core is an inflated sense of self, a belief that you are more important, more capable, more attractive, or more deserving than the people around you. And sometimes, it can be surprisingly difficult to recognize, because narcissism doesn't always look like arrogance. The first form is what psychologists call grandiose narcissism. This is the version most people imagine: confident, dominant, charming, hungry for admiration. They walk into a room expecting attention. They want to be noticed, they want to be respected, and sometimes their confidence can even make them incredibly attractive at first. But there's another side that looks completely different: vulnerable narcissism. Instead of appearing powerful and confident, someone with vulnerable narcissistic traits may seem insecure, sensitive, or defensive. They may constantly worry about how other people see them. Criticism can feel like an attack. A small comment can feel like rejection. And underneath that sensitivity can be a fragile sense of self that needs constant protection. So one person says, "Everyone should admire me." Another thinks, "Why doesn't anyone appreciate me?" Different on the surface, but both can be deeply focused on the self. And at the more severe end of these patterns is something much more serious: narcissistic personality disorder, a clinical diagnosis that can cause significant problems in someone's relationships and everyday life. But what does narcissism actually look like outside a psychology textbook? Imagine someone who always needs to win the conversation, someone who turns every story back to themselves, someone who struggles to admit they're wrong, someone who expects special treatment, but doesn't offer the same understanding to others. Over time, that self-focus can affect real decisions. Other people's feelings may become secondary. Relationships become strained. Trust starts disappearing. And sometimes, the person doesn't even realize what is happening, which raises a much bigger question: where does narcissism come from? There isn't one simple answer. Genetics can play a role, but so can childhood and environment. A child who is constantly told they're exceptional, superior, or deserving of special treatment may slowly develop unrealistic expectations about how the world should treat them. And then there's the world we live in today. Think about social media. Every day we're surrounded by likes, followers, comments, views, selfies, personal branding, and carefully edited versions of people's lives. Attention has become a reward. Validation is only one notification away. And when the world constantly tells us, "Look at me," it has never been easier to start believing, "Everyone should be looking at me." But here's the part that makes this story different. Narcissism isn't necessarily a permanent sentence. These traits exist on a spectrum, and people can become more self-aware. They can learn to listen instead of always seeking attention. They can learn to accept criticism without immediately becoming defensive. They can begin noticing other people's feelings instead of seeing everything through their own perspective. And slowly, something important can change. You can still be confident, without believing you're better than everyone else. You can be proud of yourself, without needing constant admiration. You can value yourself without making yourself the center of every room. Maybe that's the real lesson hidden inside the story of Narcissus. The danger isn't simply looking at yourself, it's becoming so obsessed with your own reflection that you stop seeing the people standing around you. Because sometimes the healthiest thing you can do is finally look away from yourself and look at someone else.